Lazarus Chisela. I was born in Wusakile, in Zambia, in Kitwe. That's where I was born. Today I've come to speak to my fellow Zambians, and in particular the youths, because of what I've noticed in the social media. I've been trying to see what exactly is going on. I hear this, the youths are very dissatisfied with the Zambian government, and they want to demonstrate. And recently I also read from the news as well as from this social media that the government has advised the youths not to demonstrate. However, there have been a lot of mixed feelings with the youths. Some of the youths have said they will go on, and others are scared. There's also some, news that some of the youths were actually arrested and then released. Now, this has raised a lot of concerns, especially for me, and I think most of the Zambians in diaspora and also at home. We see that the parents are very quiet about it. They are not talking. Only the youths are talking. And when you look at social media, it's everywhere. Everywhere you turn around, you hear that the youths in Zambia want to demonstrate. And they've given some reasons that they have found that they find it difficult to understand that they are being left out in the development of the country. Again, they have also aired some of their concerns that they are not happy with the governance of the country by the ruling party. They are saying that the ruling party is abusing their authority, and the youths feel that they are being forced not to speak. In other words, they're saying that their freedom of speech has been restricted, and in most cases, if they say something, they will be in trouble. In other words, they feel that their right to freedom of speech is curtailed in Zambia. Now, the only way they thought they would do this, they would air their views, is by demonstrating. And unfortunately, that's the only option they had, and that option has been curtailed. Well, I wanted to speak about this because I want first my fellow Zambians and the youths to understand the genesis of this challenge that we have in Zambia right now. Zambia got independence in 1964. And if you look at that time, we should also go back to the time before Zambia got independence. Zambia was colonized by the United Kingdom. It was a monarchy system that was in place at the time. The monarchy system created a situation, a political system that put the queen or the king or the monarchy above the law. Now, having said that, this is the system that the Zambian people had known at the time. And that's the system that the Zambian government, when they got independence in 1964, assumed. Well, there is evidence to this. At the time when Zambia got independence, there was only one person, and you can read in the first Constitution of Zambia of 1964, where it clearly states in chapter 3 that in chapter 4 that the president of the country shall be Kenneth Kaunda. Of course, when you look at that, you find that it has already given the person who should be the president. That's the first constitution. And there was no issue of saying that there will be another person maybe in future. Because if you look at the tenure of office of the president at the time, it was clearly stated that the only way the president would be removed from the office is if he was certified insane by professionals. he was found to be not fit mentally, or he died. Now, there was no other reason that would make the president to be removed. Of course, from that point of view, you would know that this president is going to be a president for life. I can't blame them. I don't blame the first president. Actually, he also did his part. It was very difficult to come from, colonial rule to an independent Zambia. Maybe at the time it was necessary. It was necessary to have that kind of constitution. But how much has developed, how much has changed with this constitution since 1964 to today? And this is one of the reasons the youths want to demonstrate. They are unsatisfied. That kind of system is what you'd term the rule of man system, where there was only one person who was in charge of the country. In principle, the institutions did not exist at all, because the president was the one who had the right and the power and authority to hire and fire the judge. He's the only one who had the power to hire and fire Inspector General of Police. He is the only one who had the power to hire and fire permanent secretaries. And if you look at these, the president was actually the only person in charge of everything. And that kind of system also boils down to whereby whoever has the power has the right to hire and fire. So in other words, the president was the legislature, in other words. He was the executive and he was the judiciary. From 1964, there was only one person who would stand as a presidential candidate. That was the president. And at the time, there was no one. Even if the constitution said after 5 years, you would have elections. After 5 years, they would have elections. But who would stand against the president at the time? It was him alone. It went to a certain extent where the government now had to put the opposition, the person who should stand against the president, to be a frog. This is not a joke. It's a serious matter. Our first president, Kenneth Kaunda, would be on a ballot box against a frog. Honestly, I don't understand why that happened. But we have evolved, we have developed from that point to today, 2020. Unfortunately, Zambians were not satisfied with that kind of ruling.
Why we should continue allowing you to operate in the city when you are showing apartheid, stopping blacks from doing business in here? Okay?
Yeah, this I know understand. This is English too small. Yeah.
Tell whoever understand English have taken our council license and we are going to write to you, we are revoking them. No business here, you are closed now.
Yeah, no.
Because
yes, no.
not even Chinaman here. The one you were cutting was where?
No, this one no.
No cutting here, brother. Go and cut here at home. You are closed now.
Yeah, this no.
Yes, already closed.
Yeah, already closed.
But so if it's closed, what are you doing inside?
For me, this family, and for this cooking, me home no for this cooking.
Close. I'm coming back in 1 hour. If I find you, I'll get you arrested for operating illegally because our license we have taken. Because you are discriminating blacks and closing and only attending to Chinese and stopping blacks. You lie that you've closed, but you are doing business here with Chinese. There's no segregation. This license doesn't permit you. And also putting the prices in Chinese, it's illegal. Put in English. If you want, put in Nyanja. This is not Wuhan.
With that type of governance, Zambians started thinking of having multi-party democracy in Zambia. In 1991, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, who was the first president of Zambia, through his wisdom, which I respect, and which I expect every Zambian to respect. Despite the fact that he had the power, he had the authority, he had the time, he had the place not to change the system of government. He said, this time I'm going to allow multi-party democracy. In 1991, Kaunda lost the elections and Zambia assumed the multi-party democracy system. This was the wisdom that I could see from the big man. It's something that will go in the history that would erase every error that he did, because he accepted, one, to change to multi-party democracy, and he accepted the results of those elections. It's a precedence that the following governments, the following regimes found it difficult to do. Kenneth Kaunda did that. 1991, we had multi-party democracy. But remember this, why the youths are very dissatisfied. We continued again with the same powers of the president as we had in 1964. The president again assumed the same powers. And these powers are the reasons why Zambia is in this mess.
I therefore sincerely apologize to all the Chinese people. My calling is to respect all human beings, be it in deed or speech, regardless of nationality. Number two, the last one, I render my apology to all other leaders in whose jurisdiction my actions may have interfered with, hereon to always keep to my lane and mandate. Finally, I wish to assure all foreign investors in the city of Lusaka that my office is there to support their businesses 100%, and where we feel there is misconduct or breach of laws, we shall engage them in a more civil manner.
That's why most of the people like me are in diaspora. It's because the powers are just too much in one individual. I don't know whether we were all blinded by the happiness that we were independent, that we couldn't see that we had given the president too much power. And these powers were not given from the street. They were given through the constitution. The legal framework that we adopted is a legal framework that continued in relation to the president's powers, that promotes the rule of man. Let me just summarize this term I'm talking about, the rule of man. Because somebody would say, everywhere in the world, the government is run, or the country is ruled by a man or a woman. But that's not what I mean. The rule of man I'm talking about here is whereby you are, as a citizen or anybody under that jurisdiction, you are not answerable to the law. You are answerable to an individual or group of individuals. And that's what's been happening in Zambia from 1964 to date. Citizens and every person under that jurisdiction is answerable to the man, to the individual, or to individuals. And that is the people in the position of political power. So you answerable to the president. Anybody who is in good faith, in bona fide with the current incumbent president, faster evidence that this person has breached the law. This person has stolen. This person has committed a crime. But because he's in good faith, he's a friend of the president, he belongs to the party of where the president belongs. He is a minister in that government. He is a relative. He is a brother. He is a son, or she's a daughter of the president. They can do anything they want. There is prima facie evidence that this child, this girl, has stolen. This person has stolen. But just because they're in good books with the president, they're untouchable. That's what I'm talking about, the rule of man. Because a rule of man means if I'm the president, if you are my friend, you are above the law. When you're stopped by the police, you just pick up a phone call. You say, hey, Lazarus, they have stopped me here. I want to go to the airport. Can you talk to them? I'll just pick up a phone call and tell the Inspector General of Police, can you please let my friend pass? Tell your police officers to let him pass. The same thing, happens if the case is against somebody in the government. The president will just pick up the phone and tell the judge, please, today you have this case, can you rule in favor of this gentleman? What can you do? You as a judge, you're afraid because your job lies in the hands of that individual. If you refuse, you'll have no job tomorrow. Now, coming back to the reasons again, why the youths want to demonstrate. This rule of man has continued from 1964, 1991, when we changed to multi-party, and we had the first president under multi-party, that was Frederick Titus Chiluba. He assumed the same powers. We have a lot of evidence that happened during that time. His children could do anything, could shoot anybody in the leg or whatever. They could do anything, they were above the law. Nobody would arrest them because they are children of the president. There was a lot of corruption in the end of the MMD towards the end of their second term. They were stealing. Everybody was just, they were rooting the country. But because they belonged to the MMD and they were friends of the president, the law couldn't touch them. This is the rule of man. It's a very toxic system of government where you put too much power in one individual. I don't blame them. That's how the system of monarchy operated. Even in Africa, in Zambia, we had the same. We had chiefs and, people go and kneel before the chiefs. But now, our colonial masters, they changed that kind of system. Those who were interested in understanding exactly what happened, you can read A.V. Dicey. You follow there, you would see how these people in the UK tried hard, and they have done it, to devolve the powers from the monarchy into the institutions. Today, UK, which was our colonial masters, they have devolved the powers from the monarchy to institutions. Institutions in the UK are stronger than individuals. This is why you see a prime minister will get into the same bus, the same train like anybody else. It will never happen in Zambia under the current system. The president will be escorted by a motorcade and is above the law. He is above the law. That means anybody related to him is above the law. This is what is upsetting the youths. What's happening right now? From 1991 to when we got the third president, that was Lupia Banda. He also assumed the same powers. From Lupia Banda we had Mwanawasa. He also assumed the same powers. And everybody was excited. Oh, we have Mwanawasa now. Things have changed. And I was sitting down there. I was thinking, is this true? The time Mwanawasa was there as a president, I was doing my studies in law, my undergraduate studies. And I was trying to investigate what makes these countries, developed countries, different from Zambia. I had an opportunity to live in the United States. I had an opportunity to live in Namibia. And I was trying to find out until I lived in the UK. Now, when I was studying undergraduate, I took a lot of interest in public law to try to understand, and administrative law, to understand exactly what was wrong in my country, Zambia. This is what I was trying to investigate, to see why there is that kind of system. That's when I came across the rule of man. And I realized this is the main reason why we are in this mess. Why the youths are trying to demonstrate. Because the powers are in one person. Only an individual has the power to take your liberty. Now, you see, this is what is upsetting the youths. Because when we had Manawasa, everyone was excited that Manawasa is dealing with corruption. You could not hear anybody, the sound of corruption when Manawasa took over. There was no sound. It was so silent. If you were to do any transactions, no tips. You couldn't, do corrupt practices under Manawasa because you'd be locked up. Everybody was scared because Manawasa locked up even very big fishes in the country. They were behind bars. Deep down my heart and in my own world, I was saying this is the short-lived time. What would happen when Manawasa is gone and somebody comes in who is corrupt? Because the legal framework was still the same. It had not changed. So when Manawasa left, things fall apart. Exactly. We had the next one, Lupia Banda. Things fall apart. We had Sata. Everybody was excited. Again, it was a rule of man. Sata was as strong and as powerful, even as maybe some of the most powerful countries that are doing very well because they have the strongest and most desirable, a person that has the heart of the people. Sata was that man. Yes, he had his own skeletons in the closet, but in relation to running the country was also somebody people would praise like Manawasa.
But if we are allowing 80,000 China men, they are not adding value to Zambia. Mind you, China may be a big country, but they are more than 3 billion, so there is shortage of land. And we have to be careful. We might think that we have got very big land. We might be comfortable because they give you $1 million you put in a bank abroad. But what about you, Chelakafish? You are much younger than me. What about your children? What about everybody who is there?
You need to listen to understand, not listen to respond, Honorable.
I hope my voice will not be misinterpreted. Twachula sana mwandi we feel neglected. Hamalai tu wungo kudula ngamama chika mwonekana fwe watu wala fula. Foreign investor muchoncholi esa na machai kuno mukubomba. Yonsati we got no money but ima fire tender mwakwanisa kukula. Tulale tubuka kachelo manyumba for the 80 twapeza ya ikula. Mr. President or the government, Sindine Kambwili, I'm a citizen. Sindine Head Chechi, I'm a resident. Napapata, Fweni. With all due respect, Mr. President, things are not right down here. Abantu abengi bale chula. Imisepela fulu kwa bulenchito.
Of course, we have different interests, but from my observation, this did not make any change at all. That was a short-lived happiness where you could not see corruption. Short-lived. This is why most of the people like me, we bleed with pain in our hearts when you see what's happening in the country. And for how long is this going to take for this country, for Zambia, to start saying, let us remove the rule of man, the time has come, and introduce the rule of law, where everybody will be answerable to the law and no one will be above the law, including the President of the Republic of Zambia. Now, this is not something that you would pick people who have not yet been informed about what is going on, who have never taken interest in seeing what exactly is wrong. This is the system that should be changed by people who have to spend time to read and research and compare notes with other countries that have devolved their powers from individuals to institutions. Now, today, the youth are demonstrating because there's a rule of man. Of course, who's going to speak? The parents, their parents, can't speak in Zambia because of one individual and a group of individuals that are loyal to the incumbent president. I don't blame him. I don't blame any president. I just blame the system. The system has never been the right system to change the country. From 1964 to date, people have been crying for the freedom of speech. People have been crying for the freedom, the rights. It's quite interesting. How can you have rights in a country where one person has the authority over everyone in the country instead of institutions? When you're talking about institutions having the power, is whereby you make sure that the president or individuals cannot hire and fire you at liberty. There must be a system that would make you be fired. There must be a system that would make you be punished if you commit a crime, rather than by an individual. No one should be punished by an individual. Of course, people will argue to say, no, in Zambia, people are not punished by individual. People are punished by the law. They are in prison. Give me a break. When you have a rule of man, a minister can stop you, can beat you. A minister or any politician or a cadre can stop you and beat you as long as they are loyal to the president. Are you not being punished? If the police beat you before you even go to court for trial, if the cadre beats you before you are proved beyond reasonable doubt that you've committed a crime, if the minister beat you because you have committed a crime and he is not the judge, you have not been proved beyond reasonable doubt if you've committed a crime, for goodness sake, to be punished. Nobody should be punished, should be beaten, should be touched on. Nobody should even squeeze your hand until they prove you beyond reasonable doubt that you have committed a crime. In the times when you have, committed a crime as an individual or as a group of people, you've committed a crime, you don't expect another individual to come and attack you, to beat you, to torture you. And it's a country that have, ratified the human rights, the list of human rights, the right not to be tortured, the right not to be killed, the right to education, all these rights. And sometimes I sit down and see, for how long is a country going to run, or people are going to be governed, for how long without respect to their rights? This is why the youths are talking about this. Freedom of speech. I laugh. And when say, no, we have a freedom of speech in Zambia because Zambia has ratified the Convention of Human Rights, United Nations Convention of Human Rights. No, you don't have human rights in real principle. In principle, you don't have them because they are not protected by the domestic legislation. There is no legislation that protects the domestic legislation that protects these rights in Zambia. The Zambian government, whichever Zambian government will be there tomorrow or which is there right now, they have deliberately, even the previous government, they deliberately refused to put the laws in place to protect human rights. If those human rights Zambia has ratified were protected by the domestic legislation, domestic laws, today the government could have been in court. And if you look at the legal framework of Zambia, it does not even allow you to sue the government. Well, we are saying all the time, I speak to my friends who are in the legal circles, in the legal community in Zambia. They tell me, oh, we have rights. I said, what rights are you talking about? Which laws protect these rights in Zambia? If there were laws protecting the rights of the people, we could have been looking at the Public Order Act, which would have allowed the children to demonstrate. There are two obligations. They should be in principle, according to the law. The Public Order Act must have two obligations. And the children and the youths would have demonstrated if these were protected rights. If the right to express yourself, the right to demonstrate was protected, these under the Public Order Act would have two obligations. One is to protect the people. That's the positive obligation of every government. And Zambia should have done the same One is to protect the youths that are demonstrating. If somebody is demonstrating, the government has a positive obligation to protect them. 2, they have the negative obligation to ensure that those people that are demonstrating do not cause harm. You can only do that when these people have done it before. What risk assessment was taken to stop the children, the youths, to demonstrate? I'll leave that for everybody to reflect on. My concern is to see the reasons why the youths wanted to demonstrate and want to demonstrate, and some of them have insisted they'll go on and demonstrate. I salute you, the youths of Zambia, because you have become the voice for the voiceless, and in particular for your parents. Now, coming back to the reasons why these youths want to demonstrate. They have, some of them, unconsciously taken up the voice of their parents, because their parents cannot speak at all. Because there's a rule of man in Zambia. The rule of man means the individual is very powerful, who is in the position of power. And all those individuals surrounding whoever is the leader have the power to do anything to you if you want to do anything to correct the situation or to criticize the government in power. And you have nowhere to go. You have nowhere to complain. Nobody will listen to you. It's very unfortunate that the youths were thinking maybe some people within the government, within the ruling government, will stand up for them. One tried to do that. The mayor of Lusaka was forced to apologize when he stood up for the voiceless. Of course, there is an argument to the action of the mayor. But in principle, if you look at the principle of the law, you look at the principle of morality and protection of the voiceless, you can define what the mayor did. When the youths realized that their parents could not speak because they are the ones that are highly victimized, if you speak as a parent, you will have no job tomorrow, because the government will use all its instruments in their power to ensure that they shut you down, or they even declare you unfit to work under what they are calling national interest. How many Zambians have lost their jobs? They are in the streets. They had children to support, to take to school. They had families to raise. But where? Declared unfit to work under the national interest. And these people are on the street. Their children have no future. And you say we have rights in Zambia. Do those children have right to education? Not at all. If the children had the right to education, the government would have taken responsibility of those children whose parents were fired under the national interest program. Now, parents today of those youths are being detained at work. They are being locked up in containers. They are told you can't go home. It's so unfortunate that the youths are the only ones that can speak for the voiceless. Their parents are being locked up in containers overnight. They are not allowed to go to their homes because the employer is advising them and is commanding them that if they go home, they'll bring coronavirus. They'll go and get coronavirus from home.
How are you? How many sleep in here? Six. No social distancing. I didn't come. 6 in here.
2
Huh? Two. And this side, open there. Where are your Chinese bosses? This is Master Mayor of Osaka. Okay. Your workers have called me that you don't allow them to go home. So I want to find out why you kept them for 2 weeks. And we've seen where they sleep. But why is that so? Why don't you allow them to knock off?
No, no, we're not allow them to go home because you know the corona issue.
The corona issue?
Yes, we need to take care of them and the country, you know.
How about their wives? Who take care of their wives? Don't you know it's wrong to stigmatize? You understand the word stigmatize? Someone who's not sick and to keep them against their will. What happens if somebody knocks off?
What do you mean?
If somebody goes, what will you do to them?
Well, knock off.
Yeah.
Not knock off.
Before we do that, we discuss with our
Please, yes.
Yeah.
And they signed.
Everything
Yes,
agree.
it's done. We agree.
Yeah. Because we up their salary.
Did you get that approval from the Ministry of Labor?
We are get funded from our manager. It's coming quickly.
Did you get consent from the Minister of Labor? Anyway, it's illegal. Stop it. This corona came from where? It came from Wuhan, isn't it? From China. So between you and them, who is more likely to bring coronavirus to this environment?
The corona issue now is not.
Corona started in China, Wuhan. And in Zambia it came through Pakistan to here. Between you from China and the Zambian guy who works here from Garden Compound, who is more likely to bring coronavirus in this factory?
First, the two cases is not from China. They're from France or from where?
Which one?
The first two cases.
And the first case in the world was from where?
Oh, you mean Zambian? In Zambia?
No. The whole world.
Oh, yeah, that is from. But
that's from where? Finish the sentence. From where?
Yeah, America. Before that, maybe it's they already, but they don't. They haven't to show the world.
The World Health Organization said the first case of coronavirus was coming from which country?
This I know. I don't know that.
I put it to you. It came from China. Where it come from?
It's so bad that these youths now, they can't see their parents, some of their parents. These youths, they are seeing that they are not allowed to enter some shops because of the color of their skin. Some of the Chinese investors have been very clear. You can't come into the shop, you have to remain in the car. Then your Chinese boss will go into the shop, into a mall, buy things and then bring on the door, and then you take them. In Zambia, in their own country, they are being discriminated at because they are of the different color, they are black. My heart bleeds, just like many of the people in diaspora and at home, when they see things like that happening. And when somebody stands up like what the mayor did, he was told to shut up because of the rule of man. You understand and you see what exactly is going on. Why the youths are very upset, and that's why it's unstoppable for anybody to say you can't demonstrate. They will demonstrate on Facebook, on social media, if they can't physically demonstrate on the street. They have now been told, you have to respect the foreign investor. The Chinese investor, you must respect them. Even if they insult you, honestly, we are talking about what is in prima facie in the public media, in the public, domain. What of those crimes that are committed against the Zambians in privacy? Honestly, we have heard this, in the past few years, where the Chinese shot Zambians. Killed Zambians. Who is going to speak for them? Remember, I say that the biggest challenge, the elephant in the house, is the rule of man. Until we introduce the rule of law in Zambia, we have it coming. Because there's no one to protect you. Well, the legal framework which is there in Zambia right now may usher in somebody who is good. But we are talking about sustainable. We want to have sustainable life. A life that will be lived sustainably without tomorrow thinking if the new leader comes in who is bad, then we're in trouble. This is why, when I look at this situation where the youths are very dissatisfied, I really pity my youths. Because they are going to demonstrate tomorrow. If they demonstrate and then they might be arrested, nobody will speak for them. If a lawyer speaks for them, you're a private lawyer, you're in trouble. ZRA will come on your door. They'll use all the instruments to frustrate you, even to push you out of business. This problem, when you look at it, the youths that are trying to look at, is bigger than us. Is bigger than we think. I'm on a lot of, WhatsApp groups, and one of them is my former school. Nobody talks about the government. Nobody would, even when the government has gone wrong, nobody will say anything because they are afraid. The point is they are afraid. The youths have nothing to lose. Their parents are being abused at work. Their parents are being victimized. Those who have businesses, they can't. They all have to sing the song of the leadership in power. Of course, people will be saying, Mr. Tsela, you're not serious. We have seen a lot of development in the country. We've got all these things, and what you're saying the youth they just don't know how to find a job. Honestly, they are not care. It's not about the job. It's not about the money. It's the integrity. They need that integrity. They want to see their parents to have that kind of life where they are respected. But when they walk out, they see a Chinese right now, everybody freezes. A Chinese will insult you in your face and you freeze. This has also created enmity between Zambians and the Chinese. Please, Zambians, let's wake up. It has created the enmity even against the innocent, somewhat very innocent Chinese. Very good ones. But some are bad. But they are allowed to practice racism. Racism. They are allowed by the government to practice racism on the land in Zambia. Definitely, this is terrible. Don't get me wrong. Even after this government is gone, another government comes in, another regime. If that person will be just as good as these guys who are there, they'll do the same. This is why the youths are very frustrated. And I tell you, they will continue until the change is done. These youths, you can't stop them. They are unstoppable. Today you tell them to keep quiet, tomorrow they will cry. That's what youths do. They are like babies. You tell a baby, stop crying. As long as the baby is not satisfied, the baby will keep quiet for a few minutes. But later on, the baby will scream. There shall be no peace with regard to the youths as long as the change doesn't come in. Of course, somebody would think it's only this government. No. Every regime is the same. What we need to do, Zambians need to do, is to change the system of governance. Introduce the rule of law. Well, let me look at another issue that is frustrating the youths. Is how the natural resources in Zambia are being exploited. They've been left behind. Their parents are left behind. All indigenous Zambians are left behind. Why is this like that? You'll be shocked to find that some of the biggest mining corporations in the multinational million companies, some of the biggest mining corporations in the world are in Zambia. some of them, they have made enough money from Zambia to reduce the taxes of their nationals. Where these people come from, they have used the Zambian money which they have got from the minerals and put in their government, and the government have reduced taxes for those nationals. While in Zambia, the Zambian pays so much tax. So much tax. We are only 18.5 million. So much tax that they can't even be able to go for holiday. In Zambia, a Zambian gets so little per month. Some of them don't even get anything. This money is going to save these people who don't even work. The money that comes from the natural resources of Zambia is going to other countries. They promote charities in other countries, and some of them even come back to Zambia. It's the same money that is coming from there. And all this is frustrating the youths. There is unprecedented knowledge in the public domain that Zambia has gold, a lot of gold in northwestern part of the country. The youths are saying, how do we participate in that? How do we? They don't know. And they're afraid. Now, looking at all these multinationals and FDI, foreign direct investment that comes into Zambia, you wonder who benefits from that. Looking at the facts of the minerals that Zambia has, gold, uranium, copper, emeralds, and other, like coal, and other precious stones, Zambia can live a better life. A Zambian can live in an ivory tower with enough disposable income to go abroad for 3 months holiday. We could be at the same, even maybe better than United Emirates. Every Zambian can even live a life where they would employ a foreigner as a servant in their house. If we were to see all the leak buckets, if we were to get a fair share from our natural resources, we have so much. Sometimes everybody, the youths are asking themselves, why do we get all these foreigners coming to do investment here in this country? Why are all these big companies like, Glencore, all these, big companies that are mining minerals in our country? If we had nothing to offer, if we were a poor country, who live in shanty compounds, who live in mud houses with pit latrines, and no program to change that because the government has no money. The youths are not happy. The last budget that was, provided for in Zambia, the last budget announcement, the money has not been given to the ministries to date. They have not received the money. There are so many retirees who have not been paid in Zambia. And these are the children of those people. They are frustrated. So please, if you look at the reasons why the youths are fighting hard to demonstrate, there is a reason behind which is bigger than everybody's thinking. As a Zambian, and in Zambia and in diaspora, we find ourselves in a situation where we don't even know exactly what's going on. But the youths have become the voice of the voiceless. You can imagine how those parents are feeling right now, because they can't speak. Their mouths are sealed. They speak, there'll be no food on the table. They'll be beaten. The police will come and search them like they have murdered somebody. My fellow Zambians and fellow youths, I salute you. let us salute the youths for what they are doing. They are the ones speaking for everybody. Zambians in diaspora, we can't do nothing. We are here in diaspora. But the youths in Zambia have taken the bull by its own horns. They are taking a bullet for everybody. They are there to stand for every Zambian in the world, both in diaspora and in Zambia. They need that support. If it will be masks to give them, we all have to chip in and give them masks so that they can demonstrate and express their anger. Of course, we want a peaceful demonstration. Fellow Zambians, let's salute the youths because of the voiceless that they are taking the defense for. Now, I've just explained the genesis of the problems that is leading to the youths to demonstrate. Now, of course, would ask, say, Mr. Tsela, you've given us the analysis of what's going on, and it looks like the problem is too big. Despite having all these malls, nobody's enjoying them. People don't want, the people can't talk. They have no rights. You have said now we have no rights in Zambia because they're not protected. Of course. What do we do? You're saying Zambia is taking a legal framework that promotes the rule of man. What do we do in order to have a system, the legal framework that will introduce the rule of law as opposed to the rule of man? Of course, it pains me. You shouldn't be afraid of a fellow human being. Nobody should be afraid of a fellow human being. Kneeling behind a human, before a human being, you kneel down. You can only kneel before God. That's what we say. This is very important. That we see our parents, the youth see their parents being mistreated, and they even kneel before anybody. You are only allowed to kneel before God. Honestly, it's so sad that the only thing that we're seeing is that things that are in the public domain. Most of the things we don't see them. Now, as I said, I was just trying to give the genesis of what's going on. The questions we'll be asking is, Mr. Tsela, now how do we have the rule of man? How do we have this rule of man removed and then replaced by the rule of law? That's exactly what we should be talking about. Is that we need to fight hard as Zambians, both at home and in diaspora, to remove the rule of man. I'm not talking about removing the regime, the current regime. Because even those in the current regime, they are also afraid of one man. They are afraid of one individual. Those in the ruling government, they are afraid of one person. They'll come out and show everybody, I'm good, I'm okay with it. No, they are afraid. Because their life is also in danger. Their job is insecure. If this person who has the power, it could be a minister, it could be a permanent secretary, it could be a president, wakes up on the bad side of the bed, they'll be fired. And they have nowhere to complain. If they differ with this person, an individual with authority, they are fired. This is a chain reaction. Even in employment, it's the same. People are scared. We salute the youths. That has brought us to understand what is going on. Nobody should be afraid of a fellow human being. Nobody. And in a country where there are only about 18.3 million people, no, it shouldn't be like that. Now, how do we resolve this issue? This is where now I want us to understand that this problem can be solved, and it shall only be solved by us Zambians, nobody else. It is our baby. And this is why I would like us to start thinking and support these move by the children. Please, the youths, remember, we are with you. And God is also with you. He has heard your prayer, and we have heard you. All of us Zambians in diaspora, all of us adults and parents at home, we have heard your cry. We are with you. Remember, youths, that your parents, they are with you. They know the risk that you're taking, but they are with you. You are the only voice that's remaining. Now, looking at the solutions to this issue that you have triggered as youths in Zambia, like it was triggered when I was a youth in Zambia at the time when we changed from one-party dictatorship to multi-party democracy. It's us, the youth, who spoke, because our parents couldn't speak too when I was a youth. Now it's your turn to speak so that this change can come. Now, what change are we looking at? The change we're looking at is not the removal of the regime and replace with another regime with the same system. Now, let me just go back on how to deal with the rule of man, to remove the rule of man so that everybody can walk freely. What needs to be done? First is to look at the three organs of the state. These are the pivot of any government everywhere in the world. I have done my homework on the rule of law and the rule of man. And I've concluded the first fundamental aspect or area of concern we should look at is the three organs of the state. Make them independent, but collaborative in performance, in delivering the services. What are these three organs of the state I'm talking about? I'm talking about the judiciary. I'm talking about the executive. That includes the president and the cabinet and the cabinet. I'm looking at the parliament, which is known as the legislature. If you make these three organs of the state independent, there will be no more rule of man. There will be a rule of law. And also with a component of decentralization and devolution of power. What we should be talking about is devolution of power from individuals to the institutions. Now, this is what you do. First, begin by making sure that these three organs of the state are independent. Of course, somebody will come up with the argument and say, no, Mr. Senna, we already have the three organs of the state. They are already independent. We have the parliament, which is independent. We have the executive, which is independent. We have the legislature, which is independent. So, what are you talking about? These things are already there. No. There's only one institution in Zambia, the executive. In principle, there is only one. On paper, there are three organs of the state in Zambia. Why do I say this? And this pains me, especially when I have to discuss this with a person who has studied law in Zambia and agrees and stands on the television telling the Zambians that there are three organs of the state in Zambia. I feel the pain in my heart. And I say, this is the highest degree of academic immorality. Fellow Zambians and my fellow youths, in Zambia we have the parliament. How independent is the parliament? The parliament is not independent. to be independent, the parliament must be not controlled by the members of the executive. We have members of the executive in parliament who are ministers, and the same ministers are in the executive. These ministers, they influence the laws that are made in parliament. Because if you don't follow as a member of parliament from the ruling party, you will never be a minister. Because 99% of the people that are in parliament because they want to have a job as a minister. Not that because they want to work as a member of parliament. No, they want to work as a minister. Now, how do you make them independent? You make the members of parliament independent. Immediately you say, you bring in a provision to say, you are here to make the laws for this country. The laws that will ensure that there is transparency. The laws that will ensure that there is no corruption in this country. The laws that will ensure that the budget is followed. The laws that will ensure that everyone is protected by the human rights, and ensure that you make the laws that will protect the human rights, will protect you, your children, and the future generation. And the law that will stop the executive from stealing. The law that will make sure that the president is held accountable and ministers are held accountable. Of course, in Zambia and most of the countries in Africa, we say people are held accountable by when I come and tell you that you have stolen or you've done. No, that's not being held accountable. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about holding somebody accountable, that is arresting them for committing a crime and putting them behind bars. That's what I'm talking about. This is holding the minister accountable. If the minister is found to steal the people's money, who you represent as members of parliament from your constituency, this person must be arrested, and if they are proved beyond reasonable doubt, must be incarcerated. That's what I'm talking about. You making the laws, because you say this is the law we made, and this law said as a minister you cannot do this, as a police officer you cannot do this, as a president you cannot do this. These are the laws we made, and we know that we are the highest law-making body in the country. Any law that is made and contravenes what we have made here is null and void. You know how much power that is to make the laws of a country. All the youths, if they knew what I'm talking about, they would say all of us are going to be members of parliament, and will make the laws that will ensure that every Zambian benefits from the natural resources of this country. Every Zambian is treated with respect by foreign investors and by anybody who comes into this country. They'll make the laws to ensure that whoever is coming into this country must knock with money, just like we do when we go abroad to work. When we go abroad, that's what we do. We knock with money. We don't go in for free. They will make sure that these will make the laws that will hold the government accountable. If they knew what I'm talking about, how powerful this house should be. This is how powerful. It's not being a minister. It's being a member of parliament. Because when you are a member of parliament, you are going to ensure that you make the laws that will make a life better for your child. Because if you don't, then we need to have the public to hold you accountable. If you don't perform, you must be removed. And this brings me to the point when I'm talking about the independence of the legislature. Brings me to the point whereby a member of parliament should be coming from where they live. This is where the problem is. We have members of parliament. This is why the youths are not happy. Members of parliament come from Lusaka. but he's a member of parliament in Zambian in Solwezi. He's a member of parliament in Lufwanyama. He's a member of parliament in Samfia. He's a member of parliament in Chiponde. He's a member of parliament in Kasama, somewhere. You see, this is in Western Province somewhere. This is where the problem is. Members of parliament must be independent. They should not be influenced by the executive. But if I'm in the executive, I'm a minister and I'm a member of parliament, what type of laws am I going to make?